February 25 in Tucson, Arizona. I'm Mike Ross, and I'm in the home of Vicente Becerra on Lundy Street, 3726 Lundy Street. And I've known Chente for many years, and have known of his role as a behind-the-scenes person in the creation of the film Salt of the Earth. But he's been good enough to agree to discuss his own background and then some of the work and events that were connected with Salt of the Earth as a major film production. Chente, would you be good enough to around, you know, where you were born and when? And
I was born in Hanover, New Mexico, 1926, October 27th, and I was born. My father was a lifelong miner that had come from Mexico and had worked for the American Smelting Company. And my father died in 1943, and after that I did go to work for the American Smelting Company when I was age 17 until I left for the Navy in 1944. And after I returned from the service in 1946, I got married, and that's when I went to work for the New Jersey Zinc Company, which was also known as the Empire Zinc Company.
Okay, New Jersey Zinc had taken over the old Empire property, was that it, or something?
Well, the New Jersey Zinc was the company,
parent company.
The company in New Jersey that owned it. The New Jersey, the Empire Zinc Company.
Okay, now what job did you hire in at, and did you stay at one job or move about?
No, I hired out in the mill and worked from a labor to a mill operator, which is where the ore gets separated from the waste before it's shipped to the smelter.
So it's already been through the crusher and so forth?
First it's mined, then it's milled, and then it's run through the flotation process, which is what I did.
Okay. You were an operator
in the mill.
In the mill is the position you had reached?
Yeah, it's the highest job that there is in the mill.
Okay. And you remained an employee at Hanover of the zinc company until what year, would you say?
I remained an employee from 1946 till 1952, when I became an international representative for the International Union of Mine Mill and Smelter Workers.
Now, when had the union, and what union was it that had first entered the Silver City, Baird, Hanover area, you know? It was a big mining.
It was the International Union of Mine Mill and Smelter Workers organized the mines approximately 1938 or 39, to the best of my recollection.
Your father joined it at the very beginning?
At the American Smelting, right.
But they swept through the other operations.
They had all the mines organized.
Would you say that the vast majority of the workers were Mexican-American in these operations?
Up to 1950, late 50s, the majority were Hispanic, of Hispanic descent.
What changed things then at that time?
Well, people began to move from the east and the south into the west, and the ratio began to change.
So more Anglos began to come in.
Into the mining.
Did they ever become a majority finally, or they made more like 50-50?
It must have been about 50. All the people that were in the trades, generally
the companies discriminated in the sense of the skilled trades?
The skilled trades, most of them were electricians, carpenters, and operators.
Even if they were not already skilled when they came there, they would hire a young, unskilled Anglo?
Right, and most of them would go into the shops.
They'd give them a chance to apprentice? be an assistant or something.
Or they would go like, at that time we had the big railroads, which instead of using trucks to haul ores, they had trains.
The companies had their own narrow gauge trains, and they would give them jobs on those as well. So that increasingly the discriminatory line was that the Mexican-American workers were the majority, but got the unskilled jobs, the way they did in Arizona.
Right, and the unions also played a role in that. That most of the laborers and the blue-collar workers were all in the mine mill union, and the trades were either in the office, the shops, and in the railroad and that type.
Well, do you think the companies would encourage the skilled groups to petition the National Labor Relations Board to set up separate bargaining units to get them separated out, or how would it?
Originally, Mine Mill had the whole bargaining unit.
One big industrial union.
One big industrial.
Skilled workers.
And then later, when the National Labor Relations Board became active, they began carving out what we called carving out all the trades.
Yeah, and the trades were overwhelmingly Anglo.
Right.
So there always were some Mexican Americans in the trades, but very few.
Very few.
And there were some Anglos in the large labor unit of Mine Mill, but very few. Huh?
Very few. Those were people that wanted to either work as a laborer or had no skills.
Okay. So that's the background. Now, would you tell me about the particular strike that led to the creation of the film Salt of the Earth?
The strike was over the adamant company attitude that they used to have separate housing. They had housing that had no bathroom facilities in the Hispanic part of town, and the workers on the other side of town had all had bathrooms and bathroom facilities. The key issue that brought the strike about was there was no helpers for miners, was the big issue that we had, and also we had no paid holidays. The company took the position, well, we will pay you cents per hour, but we will never, this company will never agree to paid holidays. We don't believe in time off without pay.
Are you speaking of the 1951 strike?
That's right.
Were you in a leadership? Were you a member of the negotiating committee that?
I was a member of the negotiating committee.
So you know the attitude the company took.
That was the position that they took.
Who were the other members, if you remember any of them, of the negotiating committee?
There was Ernest Velasquez. There was Paul Montoya. There was Piano Montoya.
Well, that's pretty good.
Clinton Jenks and...
okay, Clint Jenks at that point was a full-time organizer.
He was a full-time representative for the union.
How deep were the mines, the underground mines?
Well, the particular New Jersey Zinc mine was not very deep as far as footage, probably about 800 or 900 feet was the extent of it.
Okay. And the need for helpers was plain to the committee. They felt it was a safety issue and an important issue to...
Well, the miners back in those days, they felt that it would be, if a miner got hurt for any reason, it would be hours and hours before the foreman or somebody else, or at the end of the shift, they would find that something had happened.
It's because they worked in various stopes and separate workplaces, right?
By themselves.
Yeah. And the housing issue was a good community issue.
It was also an issue that was burning because the company had taken the position that, well, the housing is there, but we don't have to furnish the toilets.
Do you think the management attitude was such as to provoke the people? So that in the film it's an honest portrayal almost of the adamant attitude of the company?
What the company did, they sent one of their specialists, their head of the negotiating with a man by the name of, an attorney by the name of Graves. He had been involved in other strikes where he had used a formula to break strikes, and that was to get injunctions and assess heavy fines against the union and eventually force them to return back to work. And they had also shipped in a very hard-nosed superintendent, a guy by the name of Mr. Hewitt. He was a heavy, bully, tight-looking superintendent, and he just took the position that, well, we will give you a job at, and we will pay you a halfway decent wage, but don't expect any more than that.
Now, how long did that strike last?
Approximately 18 months.
Beginning in the summer or some part of 1951, that you recall?
The contract, I believe, ran out in June. Most contracts had a common ending period, and I believe it was in June.
Okay. So Empire Zinc, this division in New Jersey Zinc, went out on strike alone. It was not like the whole valley went out or anything.
No, just the one unit.
Okay. And did the people stay out? Were they united?
Most of the people stayed out until the company started a back-to-work movement.
How long had you been out when that occurred?
About a year. And at the end of the year, the company took the position that we were no longer employees, and that they started a back-to-work movement, and they started shipping in people from all over the United States trying to break the strike.
All right, so it was two parts of their strategy. One was to break some of your own members that were by then wanting to desert, get money, get back on the payroll, and at the same time discourage them by bringing in SCAT, really outside
people.
Conflict. Were those people from the outside Anglo generally, or what were they bringing in? Anything they could get?
Well, no, they could get anything they could get. They probably had about 30 or 40 people that crossed the lines on a regular basis, and but the majority of the local people stayed out. There were exceptions of defection in the Hispanic community because one of the leaders was a dissatisfied union member that we had lost a grievance on, and the company.
So he led a group of other Spanish-speaking workers back in. What did the company do about this? Did they take any legal actions or do anything?
Oh yes, we were fined. We had a district judge by the name of Marshall at that time, and he took the position that the big issue was that there was a road running through the company property that we claimed was private, and we were blocking all the traffic going in.
You claimed it was public, or and the company claimed it was private? Is that the way it went?
Right. And the judge ruled in favor of the company, saying that it was a public road, and therefore they had a right. Any person had a right to go through that road, and as a result of that, they issued an injunction. And depending on who the officer was that was on the picket line at the time, the highest one was $500 for a day for Clinton Jenks every time he was on the picket line. And in my case, it was $250 every day that I was on the picket line as a fine.
How would it vary? The members of the negotiating committee, with their heads, were usually worth $250?
$1 a day every time we...
And officers of the local may be the same, but rank and file members were less? Is that the way it
No,
went?
the local, they didn't find the local members. They kept it to
after the officers.
After the officers.
You were the ones who were holding the people together.
Right. We had a total fine against the union and us individuals in the amount of something like $5 million.
So how could you proceed now? The men are under, I guess, you're enjoined against being on a picket line, huh?
And as a result of that, that's when the women took over the picket duties. It was it was a tactic that we used that, well, if the men are enjoined, the members of the union, well, then the wives, that's when they took over.
Now, how did they take over? They actually...
They manned the picket lines.
And they physically prevented the scabs from going through?
They physically prevented the scabs.
So there's a sheriff and sheriff's deputies there, but they didn't know how to deal with the women or the scabs.
And then they brought in the state troopers, the New Mexico patrol.
So you had an armed garrison there, huh?
He did.
Did they, what did they do with the women?
Well, the women at the
They're not
outset...
employees. They can't bring an injunction against them.
Well, no, they arrested, one time they arrested all the women there on the picket line. And one of the things that I learned at the onset of this strike was that when you have casualties, you have to replace those casualties. And so we put out a call to all the neighboring towns to report to the picket line. So we filled up the jail, and there were still...
You had plenty of members, and you filled the jail, is that right?
And we filled the jail.
So, to that extent that those scenes are shown in the movie version, there was a lot of truth in them. I mean, the jails were overflowing. They had to stop arresting them.
Because the tactic of the company was that they were going to scare them, and when they filled up the jail, they couldn't scare them because they still had a full picket line.
Ultimately, what happened to that strike?
Ultimately, it was settled. What happened, there was pressure from brought to bear to the company that it was creating, I guess, a bad image for the company. And they ultimately decided to settle. We did not get the paid holidays. We did not get the helpers for minors. But what happened was that it was like a last-ditch thing where they said, well, we have a contract offer. We will pay you cents per hour. It's economics, and we finally gave in on the issue of paid holidays. But within a year after the strike ended, the company did put bathrooms in all of the company housing. And
it was not long before you got paid holidays.
It was the following year.
Following year, okay. So it wasn't like, the strike lasted in all about how long?
About 18 months.
About 18 months.
18 months.
Well, that's the factual background, and your own personal background is that is it not true that in later years you became an officer of the what?
Yes, first I worked for the International, and I came to Arizona, and at that time the International had goals of organizing the San Manuel mine, the Magma mine in Superior, and the Silver Bell mine and Silver Bell, and other little mines that were around the Tucson area.
So you spent some years doing that. Then you returned to...
I spent roughly about almost 5 years in the organizing movement, and then I went back.
In the late 50s, you went back to Silver City.
And then I became.
Your home was in Hanover all along before that, or?
It was in Hanover, right? And then I became the union president for the last 2 years until...
What years? Like 1960, something like that?
Well, 1959, I left the labor movement.
Okay, but for like 57 to 59, you were president of Local 890.
Even 1958, I was still president.
Okay. And in were there divisive kind of issues that, made you feel like, factionalism or something was running rampant in the labor movement that made you leave it, or?
Well, the thing that made me leave the labor movement was that I had a feeling that we were fighting a losing battle. Mine Mill was, while it was strong in the Southwest, we were losing locals in the Northwest and in the East, and we could not keep battling big steel. We couldn't keep battling the companies year-round and putting out fires, and eventually call it burnout or whatever you want to call it. I felt that I had put out enough fires, and I just couldn't take it anymore.
Okay. Your later career, just so we get it straight, you came to Tucson to live?
Right, I did.
And I know you had a career with the sheriff's office here. When did you first get hired on?
I started working in 1963 in September, and I retired in 21 years later.
And what rank did you hold in the Pima County, Arizona Sheriff's Office on retirement?
I was a lieutenant since 1967.
Since 67.
Right.
In visiting down here, there was a period in which I know you were in charge of the very modern electronic large jail in Tucson. That was one of your assignments at one point?
That was one of my many assignments, but was one of the, probably the worst assignments.
That's not all those electronic devices that excite a visitor were not exactly the best.
They were not the same. They were not the same ones that we had when we held the old jail when I was in charge of the jail.
You took me back to the new jail.
To the new jail. That's under the modern conditions.
Yeah, it was a lot better control at that point.
Right.
But even then, I was impressed as you took me around with the fact that the place was loaded with hundreds of illegal immigrants you were holding for the federal CINS service instead of local criminals, you know. And,
yeah, there was quite a few.
the other thing I wanted to ask you, what more exciting kinds of things, if any, you had? I know you were, one of your last things was dealing with the very terrible floods of '83, is that right?
Yes, in Marana.
They hit the area you were assigned to in northern.
That was my district.
Your district was Marana, a very large, lot of square miles in there.
It's a big farming district, and also has the silver bell mine in it. But basically, it was the hardest hit area in
Pima County in the flood.
In Pima County, that's where it took about I think it took 200 trailers that were at one time in a particular section of land. Which
I know you took me around, and you were a very well-known figure to the large planters and the cotton gin people and the
working people too.
And the working people throughout the area. Everybody knew you wherever we went to eat or to go around at that time. All right, that's your personal career. What I'd like to do now, and I only want to see where we are on the tape. It's still proceeding. What I want to do is start in with how someone from Hollywood got interested. It's 1951-52, say 52 when the violence begins, right?
Right.
With this excitement through whatever the contact was, the first person, as you told me, that comes in is a writer from Hollywood. Right. And who was he?
Mike Wilson.
He comes and visits your strike.
He actually visits the strike. And
does he stay for several weeks?
He stays for a couple of weeks. This was during a period of time when things were getting out of hand.
Now, Mike Wilson is a very famous Hollywood writer. At this period, though, in American history, we call the period, I believe, McCarthyism, right? And how would you characterize it? Were guys like him able to be employed easily, or?
No, there was a group of people in Hollywood that had been blacklisted, and he was one of them. He had written A Place in the Sun, which had appeared about 2 years before that. And he was our first contact. He came in and he wanted to get our opinions on.
First, did he see violence? Did he see it himself?
He actually saw the violence.
Did he see, say, tear gassing of?
Well, he saw the attacks on the women by the deputies.
Very impressive. Right. In his mind, it shocked him a great deal. Huh?
It probably did. It had because he was very able to put it into writing.
What sort of person was he? Were you around him at all in that period?
Well, the time that I saw him was when we were reviewing the actual script, And
In other words, he comes for 2 weeks, or he goes away, he writes a draft script.
right.
The women are still being put in jail, the violence is still going on, the strike is going on, right?
The
He
strike hasn't been
returns
settled.
with a draft
Right.
of how he would write a movie about it.
Right.
And what does he do? He sits down, does he bring anyone with him, a producer or anyone, or does he come alone?
Well, what happens is while he's gone writing the script, I think the strike is settled,
Okay.
and we all go back to work, and later he comes and he gets us together.
Do you yourself go back to work too?
Yes, all of us.
All right, now he comes back in with his draft script,
Right.
and a group of you, of the union leadership, or the Empire people,
same
and
people.
the others, huh?
The Empire, mainly the Empire Zinc people.
890 board too, or
Well, most of the executive board is there.
of the whole basin, right?
Right.
ASNR and the other, Kennecott, the other.
All the other unions.
So you got a large group of miners and mine mill people, workers. And what do you do? He reads it aloud, or how do you read it, or how do you judge what he's done, or how do you contribute to it?
What we do, we go over it, and we're going scenario by scenario. He has it written by scenarios, sort of
Does he give you copies around the table?
copies,
Yeah.
and there's some objectionable things that are in the script. I remember one very specific incident where we told him it wouldn't
work, huh?
wouldn't work, was where Juan would go to the
Juan Chacon, who is going to play the lead, the male lead, right?
Right.
And Juan Chacon, we have to
He
get
goes,
off here for a minute. He is an actual miner.
he's an actual miner
At which mine?
at Kennecott
At Kennecott Mine. So they've selected him.
to be the lead.
Now maybe Mike Wilson didn't, but by then there's a producer, huh?
Right.
Who is the producer? He's
Herb
blacklisted.
Biberman.
too. Herb Biberman is a blacklisted producer.
He's also a producer.
And he has got it through his head that you can take an ordinary, like almost grade school or partial high school man, like, I don't know what Juan Chacon's background was,
Right.
right? Who worked in the mines, and make him a male lead
actor.
in a movie, actor,
Right.
okay? Make an actor of him.
Because of his macho image.
He had a macho image. That's very good. Okay. You're becoming, I see why you're a Hollywood producer yourself now. Anyone who uses language like that is Go ahead. When you got back from Hollywood.
So he brings Sonia Sondergaard, which is his wife.
This is Mike Wilson's?
No,
Biberman.
Biberman's wife.
Sonia who?
Sondergaard.
Is she an actress?
She's an actress that's also been blacklisted. She comes also to help in this case. And
Okay.
so
Does
anyway,
she ever play a part, or she just contributes
No,
to
she
the
just
discussion?
contributes to the discussion.
Or she can evaluate whether Juan Chacon has a good macho
Well,
image.
and also they're picking the cast of who's going to play the leading role, and from the other side, the woman.
Have they made contact yet with the female lead? They haven't
No.
made up their mind.
They haven't
They're
made up their
trying to-
mind. No.
They're looking over the women in the local to see if a
Right.
Rankandfile
They
can do
can
it.
find somebody.
So far, they
No.
didn't locate a woman they thought could play it, huh?
No.
But she was along for that purpose, probably,
Right.
too. But Juan Chacon's going to play the lead. I want you to go back now to what you found was wrong in the script, or how you contributed to criticizing.
Okay, Mike had written in there that Juan was going to go, and here they're getting ready to strike, and he goes and uses money to go buy liquor at the company store. And we told him that we didn't think that if a man was going to be on strike, that he would be spending money at, for liquor. So we took out that scene.
Okay. So there was a case where you eliminated something.
Right.
Were there other places you think you eliminated the rough edges, or do you remember adding some ideas to them at times?
Well, one of the things that we helped him along was on bringing, there's a general rule when a baby's born, generally in our culture we try to baptize them shortly after that. So that as a result they added that scenario.
Okay, the whole baptism scenario is, I'm checking to see where we are. For some reason or other, I can't believe we're only halfway through. 60-minute thing, but it's,
Okay.
we are, okay. So you added the whole baptismal scene that had to appear in the film. It was not missing from his first
Yes.
script. Okay. You remember any other things you either knocked out or added at this point? Memory doesn't cover everything, you know.
No. I don't know, but it was something like a 2 or 3 day
Of discussion.
of discussion.
He would go back, rewrite, or create a scene, then you'd be back.
Right.
Even though you were shift workers, when would he meet? In the evening?
In the evenings mainly.
Okay. So good senior day shift people like you could attend, huh?
So then he went back and made the final draft.
Okay, now, how do they, who do they have to get somebody for the female lead. Who do they?
Well,
get
at
hold
that
of?
time, there was this lady, Rosario who was doing a series in the...
Revueltas is her
Revueltas.
last name.
Right.
Yeah, and she is a
Mexican actress.
Mexican,
a
a very
professional.
leading.
She's a professional.
She's
leading.
made a lot of, she's a
film.
top actress
Yeah, she
in
was.
Mexico, okay.
And
Why would she have contributed? Did she not like the blacklist in this country or something? Or what
no, I think that they felt that they needed somebody that was going to be meek and had to be submissive to the macho image that they wanted because of the way, looking back now, was I see it as the beginning of the women's right movement back in our time.
Yeah, the movie, indeed, wouldn't you say was it was an expression of how women stepped forward
And did that.
in place of men to take the whole leadership,
Right, they
to
did.
save the strike,
Yeah, they did. It was because of economics and the
and the legal action.
and the legal action and the company action and everything.
But they were going to show like the transition of how a very quiet, submissive,
Meek woman.
meek woman could suddenly, and that was why they didn't find exactly what they wanted.
Right.
Locally, it could act that role. Okay. I guess the women they were finding there were either rough and tough from the beginning, or
You know, they probably wouldn't take those looks from Chacon.
yeah, right. They'd laugh in his face if he tried. Now, what I want to now deal with, you brought in Mike Wilson, the writer, Biberman is the producer. They're going to bring a film crew.
A film crew.
They're going to bring some technical people, a lot of
Technical people.
professionals.
Mhm.
They need a lead carpenter that knows how to build a town, huh? You're going to have to
Electrician.
create a town, huh?
All right.
Electricians, lighting,
Lighting.
what other things they
And then
need?
they need some.
They don't need common labor thing. You're going to furnish truck drivers.
They need some. They need a good somebody that's going to portray the manager of the
Ah, yeah,
company.
okay. And a sheriff. They like
And they need
there's
some
no one
sheriff and his
locally. A
deputies.
big Anglo sheriff.
Right.
Now let's talk about who you might remember that does this. There's a professional who's going to act the company manager.
Right.
You don't remember his name
I don't
right now,
remember
but
his name at
right.
all.
He didn't stay. He didn't have to stay
Well, he stayed through the whole movie.
through the
because-
whole movie. Okay.
Yes.
The sheriff is a famous person too. They bring in
Will Greer.
Will Gear, or Gear or Greer. I don't remember.
Greer, I think it is.
Okay, Greer. That's the Waltons, huh?
It's in here. It
But
comes-
even earlier, he's a most famous character
he's a-
actor.
right.
But he's blacklisted, right? He won't name anybody
At that
to these
time, yeah, he
committees,
couldn't
right?
find any work.
So that he can't get hired. Do you remember any more they bring, or is that about the limit of the act?
Well, we had one person that worked with me in the
You had a production manager, something like that?
production manager, whatever.
In truth, if he was something like a producer or the assistant of the producer, you, in many ways, became the production manager. Or if he was the production manager, you were the assistant production manager.
I helped him get everything
You
we
were
needed.
working at the mine in your spare time. You were not going to be an actor, right?
I went to work for the production company.
All right, you went to work for the production company. They put you on the payroll?
They put me on the payroll.
Okay. So you were the equivalent of the people they brought from Hollywood in a way, okay? Did you get the union rate, or?
They paid me, I think, whatever Kennecott highest salary.
They kept it so that the union men didn't feel you were out of line.
No, I wasn't out of line.
Were there any other miners hired to put on the payroll? Was Juan Chacon put on the payroll?
Was put on the payroll.
At the highest Kennecott rate.
Right.
See, they worked at union rates. Who else was needed full time besides? You said you said that the role of a guy named Kalinski who gets injured. That's just a short scene.
It's a short scene.
He's an Anglo miner from ASNR.
From Asarco.
From Asarco, which is the nickname of American Smelting and Refining. He's then put on the payroll for just a day or two for that scene, maybe, huh?
No, but he, we keep some of the people that keep. We needed some faces that for continuity, and we did keep about 12, I guess.
That on the payroll to serve as committeemen or with Juan Chacon,
right?
Keep showing up, yeah.
But we have a lot of volunteers too.
Yeah, a lot of volunteers.
A lot of volunteers.
Clint Jenks, he's already on the payroll.
Organizer.
So he's a paid person. You don't have to pay him.
No.
But the ones that had to give up and be kept around, about a dozen had to be hired.
About a dozen.
So you really got a movie now that's going to be a large part influenced by and with miners playing a role. I want to discuss the very specialized role you played because, of course, you accepted learning and leadership, from someone more skilled, the person above you. But many of them, like Juan Chacon, are going to accept direction, are they not, from a director?
The director,
just like any actress. You're going to have to be more innovative, maybe.
Where we're going to get
because this man in charge, you don't remember his name now.
No.
Above you. He is a younger man than you even.
He's younger.
Younger than you, and you're very young then, huh?
At that time, yes.
Yeah, you are. You're only about 26 or so, but this kid's maybe 22 or something.
22.
But he's worked in Hollywood, so he knows his way around. He tells you, now I'm going to see if your recollection's right. First of all, you need a place for the whole thing.
Right, we need
Where
a
are you
ranch.
going to put it? You need a ranch.
Right.
So he tells you, Chente, get me a ranch, huh? How do you do it?
Well, I forget how we exactly got the ranch, whether it was through Clint or some of the other members of the committee.
A lot of contacts were made. You
Right.
would go around and see people. Which ranch did you end up, and who did you go to reach the owner?
Mr. Roos was an old rancher.
R-O-O-S.
Right, he's an old rancher.
Several generations.
Several generations, and he has this
His ranch sits in the middle of this valley?
It's in a big valley between Hanover and central New Mexico.
Right sitting on top of the ore, huh?
Right, and it's been laying there for years and years. He has no use for it, and he gets approached.
Does he live on it? Or?
He lives on it.
Mm-hmm. But it's just big.
But his house sits from these old buildings that we needed was about probably 150 feet away.
Okay. But it gives you good scenery, good mountains.
Right.
And now the old buildings, let's talk about them. You spot them, their use is that you can create what, like an old Tucson.
A little town.
A little town. You can. And what is actually there to start with?
Well, there's what used to be little Adobe houses that over the years had been deteriorated.
Did they have any roofs left, or?
Some of them didn't, and some did.
Okay. The walls are not intact; they're
right.
partial. What do you do about that? Do you?
Well, the carpenter gives us a list of all the material that he's going to need, which includes even little flowers for the scenes, and it's going to take a lot of sawdust and mud to get them
He's going to create new Adobe,
a new Adobe,
homemade Adobe. Right. Does he make Adobe forms actually?
Yeah, we don't make the Adobe forms. We just get a lot of mud and we
make it look like it's finished.
And then we put a lot of sawdust in it, and then we plaster everything up again.
Okay, where the holes were.
Right.
Now that's still not a town yet. He's got how does he do that with a facade? He doesn't build more buildings.
No, there's a lot of them that have false fronts.
So he adds on more false front buildings.
Right, but we have a lot of gates.
See, seeing the film several times, I didn't think the way you're thinking. You know what? He creates gates and all that.
Yes, right. because, and then...
What's your job? To get the lumber for them, the materials you
Get
need?
materials, and, but the main thing is that getting the electricity and getting the electric company to
Okay.
get the...
Film crews need electricity, right?
Right.
Well, what's the problem? The electric company won't run a line. What are you going to have to do here?
Well, they have a special problem that even if there's electricity to the house, the voltage that they're going to be running is going to be a lot higher for the movie cameras.
Okay. A high voltage box
Right.
is necessary.
Right, and it also needs some special copper wires to handle the additional electrical load. And the only people that had those was the Kennecott Copper Corporation, which ran the open pit, and they
Okay.
needed the high voltage to run their locomotives.
Now, how are you going to get? Here you're going to make a film against companies, right, in effect, in its theme, sympathetic to the workers. Your job was to get it. How did you go about it?
Well, we didn't tell them what the purpose was. We only
You went to the manager?
we went to
Superintendent?
this one of the superintendents and finally people in the warehouse that knew where they were, and we were able to borrow them for 3 months.
Without saying particularly what?
Well,
you think they guessed the use after a while?
Well, after a while they knew, but they had already committed them.
They were gone, okay. So you've got the copper bars that were specialized and the high voltage box out of them? Okay. Now you've got the ability for the film crews to function. Actually, even though you're way out in this village, there's no money really for this film. It's being done
On a shoestring.
on a shoestring budget. Some of the people are not paid at all, aren't they?
Right.
Mike Wilson or probably Beverly. You don't even know if they're on
I don't
the
know.
payroll.
I don't
Okay.
know.
If I understand it right, is the film crews are not even going to have a truck with a boom or anything, lowering, and they're going to,
No.
what, essentially set it up on a tripod?
On a tripod, and most of the shots are stationary, and they just move the
They
camera
move the camera, they pick up the tripod, it's not even riding on a truck bed
No.
most of the time.
most of the time.
So they've got to shoot it as cheap as possible. How many people were in the film crew?
The film crew was, from what I saw, was only 4 people.
4 people, okay. Did they develop it there so that the writers and the producer could see? Did they have a dark room right there? Or did they
No,
take it all
that was
back?
taken back to Hollywood
okay.
after the shooting.
So
No,
a lot of times it'd be scene 1, take 2, then take 2, take 3, take 4. They didn't like the way it would go. They
But
do it over.
the cutting and all that and the editing was done
Yeah,
back
okay.
in...
Not even the development.
No,
stuff,
none of
okay.
that. Or the music, none of that stuff.
Okay. What else did you need? You now got the ranch, you got the Adobe, the little town created. There's some space. You got the copper bar, the high voltage. What other place? You said there's going to be a baptism. What do you?
Well, we needed a church, and we needed well, at first we were thinking of using a local priest. And so we went to this bar, and I asked the bartender, I said, where could I get a priest in the church? And he said, well, I got a priest in the back room. And so we talked to the priest, and he said, well, I can let you have the church, you know, but I don't want to be in the film, you know, but you can certainly use the church.
Okay. In the back room of the bar, it was a good place. You found the man who could give you the church. That's real life. How'd you get a priest now?
Oh, the priest, what we did, the carpenter happened to be bald-headed, and he was old, and he had the facial
The guy
features.
from
Hollywood.
California, Hollywood, the real carpenter. The only carpenter there, he's going to play a dual role. Be
He plays
carpenter, and he's going to play the priest.
And we used the garments from the church and everything for the scene.
He'd let you use the
Right.
costume, priestly garb. Huh? Okay. What about for the mining scenes?
Okay.
What do you lack?
Well, we needed some mining hats with the batteries and
The hard hats
the
with
hard
the
hats.
with the
And the
lamps
lights.
in the front and the.
So again, we went to American Smelting and Refining Company, and I think we were able to procure about 50 of those.
Using your influence with foremen or superintendents or
Right.
something, and could keep them for whatever you needed them, a few
Right.
weeks. Okay. Some of the scene, one of the scenes has a store in it. Did you?
Right.
Was that available to you? How do you arrange?
Well, what we did, we knew this grocer that lived up in the little town of Fierro, New Mexico, which is a little north of Hanover. And he was a Spaniard that had come from Spain, and he let us use the store for that scene.
And the whoever, Wilson, Biberman, all thought it was a. When you would locate these, then you'd have to go back and tell them, I think I got it, and then they'd come look to see.
Well, we made them sign a little agreement.
A release, allowing you to use it, huh?
To use it.
Yeah. Most of these people were pretty happy with the when the final result turned out, except the companies maybe.
Well, they didn't know what we were doing. They knew we were shooting a movie.
Yeah.
But they didn't know the whole story of what we were.
They couldn't get the idea of what the theme of Salt of the Earth was going to be yet.
No.
As far as they know, maybe you're going to tell a story of Local 890.
Well, no, the FBI knew what it was about because they had a hill across the way that they were watching all the movement.
Okay, now the FBI. These were friendly, guarding you from your enemies. What were they doing there?
They were trying to see what the content of the film was at that time, I think.
They probably had good enough equipment through binoculars to be filming you guys.
They were across another hill.
What, they have a group of them? They were on another property.
They were on another property.
Mm-hmm. And you knew they were FBI?
Oh, yes.
They were there at all times while you were filming?
During the filming, right.
So either because at the Hollywood end, or because 890 was too militant a local, you don't know which. Huh?
And then we brought the Rosora Revueltas from across Mexico, too.
Ah. Now, she did not ask for a permit or anything. She just came, huh?
No, since she was an actor in good standing, she did not believe that she needed a permit, you know. Because American actors
go back and forth to Hollywood, and Americans went over to Mexico City.
It used to be that both actors would go to either country and produce.
How long did she stay with you? How did you house all these people?
Well, actually, there was a ranch up in Pinos Altos, which is northwest of Silver City, where the people that came from Hollywood would stay.
Okay. And Rosario Revueltas was part of that group.
Was part of that group, and the rest of the miners just stayed at their homes.
All right, so these were the professionals, really.
Right.
Stayed. This was a ranch that was available on a per diem basis.
It was like a big hotel that they rented.
Okay. And the rest of you went home every night?
No, there's no problem.
Now.
I'm always living in.
Now, Chenti, how long do you think the whole on-the-ground, even if they weren't shooting from the beginning, the first crews, the writer, the producer wanted us, see what you were doing, and the crews from Hollywood, Leavin Rosario Revueltas out for a minute, and say the actor that was going to play the manager, he didn't have to come the first day, right? They weren't shooting yet. You think you were on the payroll and the others for how long?
A good 2 months, I would say.
Okay. At the beginning, you're just setting things up. You're getting the ranch, you're creating the town, you're doing it. Do you, there are other scenes, you get the Fierro store available to you, you get the church available, you've done all these kinds of things. You got the mining hats, you got the electrical. Do you immediately create the jail? There's going to be a jail scene. Do you have it waiting from the beginning on?
We create that out of wood, and it takes quite a while to make all the.
Yeah, how do you make things look like bars? He buys rounded.
It's rounded lumber, but it's painted black, and then they use 1 by 2 pieces of lumber across.
So the carpenter's creating that at the beginning too. He knows what he needs for the whole thing. He puts that away from the town, right? Where that can be another scene.
Right, another.
Okay. Do they have to worry about sunlight and all, or is there always so much sunlight there's no problem?
Well,
How does he show darkness in the jail, and all?
Well, that was a scene that was inside of a building, and that was I think that scene was in one of the Union Hall.
He created the jail inside of a Union Hall.
Right. I think
Where was the Union Hall? At Bayard?
Bayard.
Okay.
But that was because it had to
Look
give the
dark,
space
yeah,
and
yeah.
dark.
Okay. And it could be built and set there, and the members would tolerate it
There's
for a
no-
month or so, you
there's
know.
no problem.
Okay. Now, there's one scene where this worker gets hurt, where it's made to look as if the lift is coming up from a mine shaft, bringing him up.
Right.
Do you really dig a mine shaft, or what? How do you handle that?
No, what they do, they make it. They use a winch and a cage, and
Where did they get the cage? They create one?
they create
or
one.
They don't get a real mine cage.
Right,
okay.
and then they use the winch off of a truck and they just
And,
hoist it up.
They don't show the pulley that's pulling it up, right?
No, there's no pulley. It's just part of a shaft,
Okay.
a dummy shaft.
Okay. That's how they handle those. You had to
That had
play
to
a
be,
role in putting together the materials. For
Yeah, we had to
these
get
things.
all that together.
Okay, now, there's also an ambulance, if you remember.
Right.
Some other thing. How do you arrange that?
Well, what we did, we went to one of the mortuary companies that had an ambulance that they hadn't used for quite a while, and we rented that for, I think it was a week, so we could shoot that
Yeah.
particular scene.
Okay. I'm going to take one more look so we don't run out here and leave you having to do something over. Now, Rosario Revueltas, like the manager, probably, and Will Greer do not have to come the first couple of weeks or so. You're just getting started, huh?
But all the Hollywood people did come
All the Hollywood people came from the beginning.
from the beginning.
So Will Greer was more than an actor learning his
No,
lines.
he
He was
was-
interested in what you were doing, right?
Yeah, he was
He was
helping also.
curious. Was there a lot of curiosity about the miners? I mean, would they want to sit around and ask you about your lives? What would they do in their spare time? Or
Well,
were they separated at this
Well,
ranch?
no, it was from the time that we started till the time it ended, it was a very busy thing because we were always building something or had to create something. And the only time that we talked, I mean, was as we were working.
Okay.
We would, that's
There
what
was camaraderie and curiosity sometimes about your
we would
lives?
ask each other as to, what they did, and
You'd ask them, what do you do in Hollywood? Where do you live? That
and
kind
they
of
would
thing.
ask us, how long you been
Did
here.
any of you take any of them home, or they always went back to the...
Well, most of them went back to the ranch because at the time,
They were
They
long
had-
work days. They
they
were ready
had
to go to sleep. Huh?
and not only that, they had to spend some time with their families too, I guess.
They had their families with them there, too.
Right.
Okay. Now, Rosario Revueltas, who's going to arrive late, though, say 2 weeks late or something, to start her thing. Something happens, right? The U.S. government, the FBI watching, somebody is going to do something in here now, huh?
Well, they deport her before we end the film, before we finish it. We're able to
Very
finish
close to, you've shot almost everything you need,
a good 3/4 of it.
3/4 of it, and they simply put a deportation order on her. How do they come and get her? Just to serve her with papers?
They serve her with papers and take her away.
They take her away. Who the sheriff?
marshals did.
U.S. Marshals take her away. Okay. Was there any other sign besides FBI observation of the hostility to what you were doing?
Those were the only people that were around all the time.
Okay. There was a good crew of FBI men up there, constantly
Yes, there
observing. Let me ask now about the deputies. The sheriff had deputies. Were those professional actors, or who played the deputies?
Well, Will Greer was the head of them, and then
He was the chief. He was the sheriff.
He was the sheriff, and then the carpenter, and not the carpenter, but the electrician and the person that took care of the lighting were the other two deputies that helped him.
Okay, so they were not local people, but they were doubling.
They were doubling
They were
the
skilled
roles.
craftsmen. They were not ordinary skilled craftsmen. They were sympathetic to the blacklisted people, weren't they? They were
Right,
friends
they
of
were
theirs.
doing two jobs.
Yeah, they were willing to. There were no union rules of saying, I won't do this or that. You know?
No, they weren't.
They worked and you all worked. And then you had a lot of volunteers. Only a dozen of you even were on the payroll.
Right.
You had dozens more who appeared as extras for nothing.
Well, we had at one time, I guess the peak was about 100 people that we
You need it for scenes.
We're needed for scenes.
You just send word into the unions and call
Well,
and
we
get
would
your
try
people.
and get as many people, especially on weekends, because that's when most of the people were off, and trying to get them to, that's when we would shoot the big scenes.
Okay. Now, because they deported Rosario Valtis, how did you complete the film? She appears near the end of it.
Right.
How do you have close-ups of her, or do you avoid close-ups of her?
Well, what they do, they get a lady by the name of Anita Torres to fill in. Her body structure is very similar to Rosario Revueltas, except all the shots that they take are from the back.
Right. Well, you're the body man. You're the materials man. So you deliver someone with a correct body structure to them, and they shoot her from the back. They dress her in the same costume.
They shoot her in the same costume.
So she's embracing maybe Juan Chacon, the macho image, but it's his face and her rear, right?
Right.
Okay. And she is the wife of a miner, Anita Torres.
She is.
What is her husband's name?
Lorenzo Torres.
And where does he work?
He used to work for Empire Zinc, just like I did.
He was a rank and file. You knew him well from the job, huh?
I knew him from the job.
Okay. And what else was missing? As did they get in everything, or did they have to finish some things?
Well, they had to
couldn't
finish
film?
some of the scenes up around Bisbee at the open pit. The scene where the conveyor belt with the ore comes to a stop. That was filmed in Bisbee.
Now the ore coming to a stop is a dramatic scene, so they need to show a.
Right. They
what do? Go to Phelps Dodge, and they don't know what they want, and
well,
the conveyor belt.
I think what happens is the crew is going back to Hollywood. They stop by the Bisbee pit, and they see this this crusher, and it's crushing the ore, and the
right from
conveyor
the
belt.
road they can shoot it, huh? Without
Yeah.
permission. Yeah.
So what they did, the only thing that they do, they tell the guy "Apáralo, Chente," and you see that the conveyor comes to a stop, and that's when the strike
He cooperates. Is that right? Okay. They lack a very dramatic scene, but they pick it up on the
They
road.
pick it up on the road.
And the rest of it is just cutting and splicing and
editing.
music and all this kind of thing, right?
Mhm.
Can you think of anything else you've left out of this account? Oh, feeding. How did you feed all these people? They had to be fed. They got up early in the morning and they worked till night, huh?
Well, we had
This was your responsibility.
that was also our responsibility, was to make sure that they had plenty of food and Kool-Aid and soft drinks and all the time.
So how'd you arrange this? Through other people?
No, we did the purchase. We had people deliver so many loaves of bread, so many pounds of bologna, and
Who made it up for you into sandwiches?
well, the women there at again the women.
Union Hall?
Well, they're at the on the site
On the site. Volunteers would help you?
right there.
Right there. You had volunteer miners' wives and volunteer miners. Is that right? What was the rank? You think the rank and file support was terribly important then? I mean, you could not have pulled this off.
We could not have pulled it off. No way.
They didn't understand exactly, except that these were friends. No one knew what the product would be. You couldn't imagine, could you, from what you saw?
Well, the leadership had put all the input. We knew what the whole thing was going to be at the
Were you
beginning.
a member of the board of the 890 at that time?
Well, I was
negotiating.
from the Empire Zinc
Yeah.
people. But
You
we had all
represented
put in our input, so we knew what we had
You
wanted.
knew what the script was going to tell, a
Right.
good story of a strike,
Right.
Story of a strike.
And at the end, the ending, of course,
Remind me what the ending scene is.
the ending is where the district attorney and is telling the sheriff, and they're telling the company man, the superintendent, that he had better settle it.
Mm-hmm.
And it sort of came home because that's what I think
In
eventually,
life, that's really happened. didn't it?
because politically somebody put the company on notice that they better settle it.
Well, in those days, you even had a Democratic governor. I mean, they were getting unfriendly
so there was
reputation.
a lot of political pressure at the end, I think, to settle it.
Right. Okay, this has been a very good account, and if we think of anything later, we'll add it, but I thank you for reviewing it all with me, Chenti, because it's not often I meet a movie producer
Well,
that's contributed.
so long ago that, it's just trying to think back what really happened,
Yeah, you sort of, I catch you by surprise in a way. You can't
Well, I
think
know
of each
basically,
element.
I know it's what I think happened, but all the little details, the minor things that went into it,
It might have taken 30 interviews with different people before you got a certain thing.
Well, you had to hunt a lot before you came to the right place, because a lot of people would turn you down.
Whether it was for a ranch or a church or anything else, a store.
Just to give you an example, on the car that the superintendent drives in the movie, trying to find a convertible from a minor, it took quite a bit of doing before we finally came with a minor that did have a convertible.
You had to go through a lot of people to find it, huh? Right, and there's a lot more. If I'd asked this to you 30 years ago, you could have remembered rapidly.
Probably. I was just thinking of something that, it was very simple in the movie.
Well,
but,
30 years ago, we were almost neighbors, and we were talking about a lot of things, but we were working day to day on everything. You go to Silver Bell.
I do remember that it took a lot of time because we had to find something that was fancy, but yet to get it in the community, miners was pretty hard. We couldn't go. There was not that many convertibles back in those days.
So there were a lot of things like that went into the production that you might not remember.
The store owners was another thing that it took a little finding, but we found eventually the right person.
Right. A lot of time went into it. Okay, I think we're so close to the end, I don't want to have it cut you off while you're on the middle of it. Did we determine about how long Rosario Welters might have been here? A month, you think, before they deported her?
She was here about a month and a half, I would say.
Month and a half. Then okay, and the ending of it was, did you ever go back, or you went on to union staff after that job?
Before the movie ended, I had to come on staff. I was offered a position as a staff.
But the movie was just about...
Oh, that's it. The same day that Rosario Welters was deported, I heard the news as I was coming to Arizona.
You were on your way. You had to accept a staff job.
Right.
But you'd done the materials work.
Everything was just about done.
Okay. Thank you again, Chenti, for telling this account of a famous Hollywood producer. As David Velasquez said, who spliced and put together that story of the Diary of Morenci, each time he says, now when I came back from Hollywood, or when I was going to Hollywood, they sent for him twice, to ask his advice. In your case, you never got to Hollywood, but you helped Hollywood produce a very famous movie, huh? How were you really colleagues with people who were blacklisted and denied their rights too, and they were helping people who were denied, don't you think, their rights as miners and millmen?
Well, they didn't act like big shots. They didn't act like big movie producers, what you would think a producer would be. They were just common, ordinary people that came and
you enjoyed the association with them every day, right?
They were very nice.
They were very down to earth, huh?
Down to earth. I mean, they got down and they talked and they said, how are we going to do this?
And if you had a better answer, they took your answer, right?
Yeah, they took our answer. I mean,
it was a remarkable piece of cooperation, wasn't it?
Well, and also what made it easy was that these the few professional people that we...
How the cooperation with you, what were the professionals like?
Well, they were down-to-earth people that if we had an idea or they had an idea, or if they wanted something done, they would tell us, this is how we do it, and this is how we can do it so that it comes out looking like an Adobe, or how this is going to look like we're hurting somebody, but they're always telling you how to do things, and we had no experience in how to make a movie.
Well, you rapidly gained experience, but you were invaluable to them because you knew the local community.
Well, I knew where the resources would be.
I mean, they would. You see why movies cost $30 million? They have to go send for high voltage from Hollywood, or go to a big company and pay them $10,000 to rent these. Did you didn't have to do with returning that stuff then? Someone else had to return it. Huh?
No, I did return some of the things back, and I did get.
What did you turn back in then?
Well,
mining hats.
Well, I remember I took a lot of tools back to the Peru mining company.
Now, we didn't discuss the tools. Where were all these hand tools?
Well, we needed some tools for the jail when we were making the jail, and they were expensive tools. And I remember the superintendent said, "Well." He said, "That'll be the last time I'll ever lend you anything."
Why? You found out what you were doing?
We found out what we did. That was that.
You kept it maybe 2 weeks, or?
No, I told him we was going to keep him for 2 weeks, but when I went back to return him,
he figured out what you were
doing.
Well,
he was real indignant. And
you think the FBI might? You said they were present. They might have been around to some of these people.
Well, I think
you never saw them in town, did you?
Well, I think that what they felt was that I had betrayed them, here with an individual that they knew, and they trusted me, and I guess they felt that...
you didn't say what exactly you were using everything.
No, and they felt that...
but you did need several $100s worth, or several $1,000s worth of very expensive hand tools.
And we couldn't have got it anywhere. We couldn't go to the local store and buy it.
This was not hammers and hand saws. This was good equipment, huh?
No, these were special equipment that you use to make the lumber.
Dowels, to turn a...
make holes and stuff. Right. Dowels and stuff.
Yeah, right. To create a jail. That was one of your problems, huh? Did you ever appear in Salt of the Earth? Is there any scene in which you are seen?
Yes, I'm in one scene. I think I'm wearing a little sweater, a blue sweater, and I'm sitting on top of a hill, and as the superintendent is driving, I say, here comes the super. I think that's the words I use.
Vicente, you were a real actor. They trusted you with 3 words, right?
Here comes the super. I believe
it's obvious you were a producer. You see, they don't let a producer even get in the movie.
But I believe that's the only scene.
Except Woody Allen. He produces, he directs, and he acts.
Right. That was the only scene I think that I was there. Here comes the super.
Here comes the super. Okay. Did they cut it? You don't think they cut that out? Maybe
no, it's in the movie.
Did they film a few other places where you were in it and cut it out?
No, because I wasn't in that end of it. It just happened.
Yeah, by accident. They said, "Hey, come here. We need somebody.
We need somebody up there in the hill." And
yeah. Well, congratulations. You were not only a movie production person, but an actor as well. Have you ever had an experience to equal it? You think that was as different, unique?
Well, no, not from what could have been a big impact. I think if a lot of people had seen the movie.
Well, were the American people not robbed of one of the great opportunities? This was an award-winning film, and it never was allowed to be seen during that. It came out in the McCarthy period. The theater owners were scared to death, right?
I only saw it in New Mexico.
Where did you see it in New Mexico?
We were able to get one of the drive-in.
Oh yeah.
The drive-in people to
in the
agree to show it.
Silver City area. Okay.
They showed it for I think 1 week or 2 weeks.
Did a lot of people there? They went
yes.
to see because it was their relatives and their neighbors and everything in the film. I know at the same time when it was released, my only little part, I lived in Carlsbad then, and we couldn't get a single theater. A big committee of cowboys that were on the union committee went to see each theater owner. They refused. You remember the newspapers began, as you made the film, you remember the El Paso Times and am I not right? They began branding it as a communist, leaning movie, so that here's Rosario Vueltas. She's like the Marilyn Monroe of Mexican movies, you know. It's not like, but it's true that some of these people were blacklisted at that point. It was a terrible period of McCarthyism. And I know the only way we could get it was to finally pressure the owner of an empty theater to let us take the losses, you know, rent it for a fixed sum. And so we showed it for a week there. But that's a shame, because now you realize I was called in by Duke University, and I said, they said, we try to get the director or a writer or somebody connected with the film. We can't find anyone. We're showing Salt of the Earth, and we always have a class here in political science and the film. So here we don't, the writer's not around, no one's around, but somebody told us, you once had something to do with these miners. So I said, that's a very distant way to comment on it, bring me in to comment on it. And of course, if Vicente Becerra was there, you could have told him a lot about it. But you see that, it's coming back. This is a series, David Velasquez told me at the University of Arizona, of the 10 great classics of American film. This is one of them. There are not many classics, you see, that the world recognizes. This is one of them. And it was done on a shoestring budget. You know where I see that difference is even comparing Velasquez film that he spliced and worked. He went out to Hollywood and, you know, a professional helped him, but he picked the scenes. He does the narration over this movie called Morenci, Diary of a Strike. But it's not done professionally. The whole thing only cost $1,500. Everybody volunteered their labor. The money, like the $300, was the guy who had the idea and did it for nothing and brought the film crew for nothing, didn't have $300 to pay the darkroom developing people. See, they had to get a friendly to let them on a night shift of $300 develop the film. Then they had to do their own splicing, you follow me, and all that. You compare that with the United Steelworkers of America's 2 films of this Phelps Dodge strike, and they both end up with, you know, the credit for this film goes to Payne, Blank, and Hutton movie producers, you see. And you know what they look like is commercials compared to his film. His film was real. There's a Mexican wedding in it. There's you know, there's a children's party in it. It's a whole, it's not a, the other film is just a professional company for $50,000 goes down and films the picket line for them in color. So you know how pretty they can make it look. It's boring. It's one picket line after another with a voice telling you, you know, how important it is to support these people. It's like an ad, you know, take Tylenol or don't take Tylenol, you know.
I think the most dramatic scene in the whole movie is where Juan Chacon is getting beaten by the cops, and at the same time Rosario Revueltas is having her labor pains.
I remember that. Yeah.
And I think that's the most, it had the most impact on me anyway.
Were you there as that was filmed?
No, because I, most of the time I wasn't.
Most of the time you were out in the field. But as you watched the film, that was one of the most striking scenes, wasn't it?
Right.
Yeah. As they flash the...
Both of them, is that one is getting...
One is being beaten to a pulp, and she's gone through labor, you know. It shows good direction and good
that's where their expertise paid off.
Yeah, their expertise is nothing to equal. The Rankandfile comes through, but without expert help, you know. It's not... What do you ever remember being present to watch film where you were not in the field somewhere?
Well, I remember the ambulance scene where Kalinsky is hurt. I remember that, and I remember I think that when they get ready for the eviction, I think I was there when they're trying to evict the miner.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Thanks again, Vicente. And